السلام عليكم. واحدة من أهم النبوءات اللي
Hello,
بتتحدث عن
one of the
المسيح
most
النبي
important
محمد صلى
prophecies
الله عليه
that
وسلم
speak about Islam and
وموجودة
about the
في
Prophet Muhammad, peace and
الخاتمة
blessings
اللي
be
اتكلمنا عنه
upon
في
him,
موضوع
is found in the book of
أنا
Isaiah. We've
شخصيا أرى
discussed the
إن
book of
ده
Isaiah several
هو
times
واحد من
before, and
أهم
I
الصفات
personally consider
المقدسة
it one of the
إن
most
يكن هو
important
الأهم.
books
حتى
of the Bible,
المسيحيين
if not the
بيسموه
most important.
الإنجيل الخامس لأنه
Christians even
يكترث
call
به
it the fifth
البشارات
gospel,
والنبوءات.
because it's filled
هذا
with
السفر
prophecies
وجد كاملا ضمن
and
مخطوطات
tidings. This
قمران
book was
فبيقول
found
النص
complete
الكامل
among
ضمن
the
مخطوطات
Dead Sea
قمران
Scrolls, and for
فده
a
شيء
book to have
مهم
its complete text
والنص
found in the
الموجود ضمن
Dead Sea
قمران
Scrolls is
أصلا
very
مرتبط
significant. The
بالنص
text
الأسطوري اللي
found
هو
in the
النص
Dead Sea
العبري
Scrolls
المعروف.
is almost
يعني
identical
نقدر
to the
نقول إن
Masoretic
القرآن
text, which is the
هو
Hebrew
يمكن
text known
أقل
previously. We can
الأسفار
say
نجاحا
that
في
this book is
التحريف
perhaps the
وهو زي ما قلت
least
هذه
corrupted of the
البشارات
Bibles, as
والنبوءات
I
واحدة من هذه
mentioned.
البشارات
It's full of
والنبوءات
prophecies
موجودة
and
في
tidings.
سفر
One of
إشعياء
these
21
important prophecies is
13
found in
إلى
Isaiah
17. وكنت عملت محاضرة من قبل عن هذه النبوءة قبل سنتين في
21:13-17.
قناة
I gave a
المسيحيين
lecture on
وقلنا
this
طبعا
prophecy
أنا
before the
ظهور
Al-Madina
قناة
channel even
بعد موضوع
existed,
الماء
and we later published an audio recording of it on the
فيها
channel
تفاصيل
after its
كثيرة
establishment. The
عشان كده
prophecy
هم
is
لعبوا
very
فيها
important and contains many
وترجموا فيها
details,
نصها
which is why they
وغيروا
tampered
فيها
with its
الكثير
translation,
والنهارده إن شاء
altered
الله
its
هنتكلم عن
text,
هذه
and
النبوءة
distorted much of
بشكل
it.
تفصيلي
Today, God willing,
وهنظهر
we will
كيف
discuss this
يتم
prophecy in
التحريف
more detail. We will
والناس
show
طبعا
how
لا نأخذ منهم الكلام
distortion occurs, and that,
كما
of course, we
يرددهم
don't
وما
take
يأخذ
their
الكلام
words
ويحرفه
at
من
face
خلال
value,
موضوع
as
اللغة
they claim,
العربية
but
سواء
rather we
إنجليزي أو
scrutinize
يوناني
and examine the
ونشوف
text by referring
الترجمة
to the
الإنجليزية
original
هل هي
languages,
ترجمة
whether Hebrew
النص
or Greek, and
بصورة
seeing if
صحيحة
the
ولا لا ولا
translation we
بيترجموها
have
عشان
is
يخفوا النبوة
accurate,
بهذا
or if they
قبل ما
tampered with
نقرأ
it
النص
to
في
conceal
الترجمة
the
العربية في
prophecy.
البداية
Let's read the
الترجمة العربية
text
دي اللي
from the
بتؤمن بيها
Arabic
المسيحيين
translation
والمسلمون
first. This
طبعا
is
درس
the
الكتاب
Arabic
المقدس بالنسبة
translation that
للمسيحيين وهم
Christians believe
تعالوا
in,
نقرأ
and of
النص
course,
عايزين
this
نعبر
book
عن
is
السبب
believed
ورسوم
in by
التحريف
Christians and Jews as
التحريف
well.
في
Let's
سفر
read the
النص
text
يقول
and then comment on the
وحي من
translation
جهة
and see the
بلاد العرب
distortion and
الوحي
falsification that
بلاد
occurred
العرب
in it. The
التي
text says an
يتوافد
oracle
الناس
concerning Arabia in the woods. In
النبأ
Arabia you will
ذوات
lodge,
الأبصار
O
يتوافد
caravans of the
الأصفياء
Danites, bring water to meet the
وفجاج
thirsty.
بالخبز
O
طبعا هنا
inhabitants
زي
of the
بلاد
land
العرب
of Timur,
زي
meet the fugitive
البابليين
with bread.
زي
There are
هويلا
many
أرض
details,
عمران
such as
وفجاج
Arabia,
أرض
the
سيناء
Danites, to
فإنهم من أمام
meet the
السيوف
thirsty,
قد
and the
هربوا
land of
من
Timur,
أمام
for
السيف
they fled
المسلول
from the
ومن أمام
swords, from
القوس
the
المشدودة ومن أمام شدة
drawn
الحرب
sword, from the bent bow,
فإنه
and from the
هكذا قال لي السيد في مدة سنة
intensity of the battle. Thus he said, the
يستعيد
Lord will
مجد
make
كدار
me, within a year,
والبقية
like the
عادت
years of a
للسيد
hired
أبطال
worker.
بني
All the
قرظاز
glory of Kedar will
لأن
perish,
الرب
and the remaining
تكلم
number of the
به
mighty
وحيا
archers of the
لاحظ
sons
هنا
of
في
Kedar
النص
will be
وحي
few,
من
for
جهة
the
بلاد
Lord,
العرب
the God of
هنا لاحظ
Israel,
يقول
has
لك
spoken.
عادت
Notice how the text begins
عندنا
with
وحي من
oracle,
جهة
from the
مصر
direction of
وحي من جهة
Arabia.
دمشق
Someone might
وحي
come
من جهة
along and
سور
say,
وحي
it's
من جهة
perfectly
جوبا
normal. We
وحي
have
من
oracles
جهة
from the
زيتون
direction of
حوالي
Egypt,
10
oracles from the
نبي
direction of
كانوا يصيغوا في
Damascus,
اللغة
oracles from the
الإبريقية
direction of Tyre, oracles
فكلمة
from the
وحي من جهة بلاد
direction of
العرب
Dumer,
مش
oracles
شرط
from the
إنها تقول إن
direction of the
في
beasts of the
نبوءة
Negev.
أو إن في
There are
نبي
about
في بلاد
10
العرب
texts with this wording,
أول
all in
نقطة
the book of
إعادة
Isaiah.
الترجمة
So,
عشان يخدعوك يا صديقي المتابع وعشان نكشف الخداع ده والتزوير خلينا نرجع للنص العبري النص ده المفروض ان هو النص العبري
the phrase
المقدس
oracle from the
اصلا
direction of
اللي
Arabia
أضيف
doesn't
للترجمة
necessarily
بتاعتنا
mean there's a
النص العبري
prophecy or a
يقول
prophet in
مسا
Arabia.
بعراف
This is the first
بيعر
point they
بعراف
manipulated in
سيدو
the
والحور
translation to deceive
يوناني
you, my dear reader, to expose this
بترسمو
deception and forgery. Let's go back
بتايوماي
to the Hebrew text. This
يوشفي
text is
أريث
supposedly
بيرا
the Hebrew
إيمي
text
بريني
that the original
هرابو
text refers
هبدو
to, meaning the one that
ببريني
translated
هوش
it into Arabic.
مشا
The Hebrew text says,
ببري
Mesa
كشتم
Baraf, Bijar Baraf, Telenohat Didanem,
ببري
Lekret
كبري
Mir, Heteomer,
كشتا
Yesfamer Kib Haravat, Nardu, a
ויכו
building,
אמר
a letter.
أدوناي إلهي بعود شنا كشني سخير وخلا كل كيفود كدار وشقار مسبار كشت جبوري بني كدار يمعتو كي أدوناي إلهين إسرائيل دبير ده النص العبري كامل النص العبري بيبدأ بيقول مسا بعرف مسا يعني وحي بعرف عرف اللي هي بلاد العرب أو العرب الباء حرف جر ويترجم إلى بي أو في يعني وحي في العرب وحي في بلاد العرب طيب النص الثانية اللي هم ترجموها وحي من جهة زي وحي من جهة دمشق مثلا هتلاقي النص بيقول مسا وبعدين اسم المكان مباشرة مسا مصريم وحي مصر وهكذا مباشرة وفي فرق كبير جدا لما أقول وحي مصر ووحي في مصر لما أقول وحي مصر يعني هو وحي بيتكلم عن مصر أو وحي يخص مصر زي ما أقول كتاب المكتبة هل لازم ان الكتاب ده يكون موجود في المكتبة؟ لا، هو كتاب يخص المكتبة، ينتمي للمكتبة، لا يشترط أن يكون موجود في المكتبة، ممكن يكون موجود عندي في البيت لكن هو كتاب المكتبة. لكن لما أقول وحي في مصر فده بالتأكيد موجود في مصر.
So this is certainly present in Egypt. When I say revelation in the Arab lands or among the Arabs, we are talking specifically about revelation in the Arab lands. This is the only different text out of 10 texts. This is the translated Arabic version of revelation. On the one hand, we have a single text that is different. All the other texts say revelation, the name of the place directly, the revelation of Egypt, the revelation of Damascus, the revelation of Babylon, the revelation of Suraj, and so on. The name of the place is directly followed by the word revelation, but the only text whose wording is different is this text, revelation, in the Arab lands. So why is this text different? What is the secret of this text's distinction and the secret of its difference from the rest of the texts? There must be a reason. For example, Father Matan al-Maskin, when he was talking about the book of Isaiah, said that the writer of the book of Isaiah was proficient in the Hebrew language. So why did this person, who was proficient in the Hebrew language, make this text different? This is a question we must consider. Why was this text made different from the rest? The Septuagint, the oldest translation of the Bible, a Greek translation of the Old Testament, sensed this difference and this distinction. It felt something strange. The translation was supposedly made before Christ, but it underwent many modifications and changes in the manuscripts up to the 9th century AD. The translator sensed something different and distinctive in this prophecy, so it deleted the first part. Instead of saying, revelation in the land of the Arabs, they removed that part entirely. So, what were they trying to hide? Why did they remove revelation in the land of the Arabs from the manuscripts completely? The Christian commentator Adam Clarke sensed this distinction and this difference and said that this text is different. Here, there is a preposition, and it is not present in the other texts. All these other texts do not have this preposition. So, he concluded that this text must be corrupted. It was easier for him to admit to the text being corrupted than to admit that this text is distinctive and different, that there must be something strange in it, something that requires scrutiny, research, and consideration. He said, no, this text is corrupted, and it's not just Adam Clarke, but others, as appeared on screen in the handbook. How he says the prophecy about the Arabs is literally translated as revelation with the Arabs or revelation in the Arabs or revelation in the Arabs. This is the only prophecy whose title uses the preposition with or in with the name of the target. It's not easy to determine if this usage carries a special significance. Here, notice that there is something distinctive, and he told you that we don't know exactly the reason for this distinction, but we know that this text speaks about the greatest of prophets, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. So the text came out distinctive and different from the other texts. All the other texts say revelation of Egypt, revelation of Damascus, revelation of Tyre, and so on. That is a revelation that pertains to this place, not speaking about a prophet in this place, but this text speaks about a prophet who will come in this place, and not just the prophet, but it speaks about other details, as we will see. Now, after we corrected the translation of the text based on the Hebrew text and showed how they manipulate the text and how they distort the texts, it's not enough that they distort the Hebrew and Greek texts, but the translations themselves are distorted, misrepresented, and falsified to hide the truth. Now that we've corrected the translation, let's start commenting on it. The text says revelation in the land of the Arabs. We agreed that the translation is revelation in the land of the Arabs. So who is the prophet who came to the land of the Arabs other than the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him? We'll see. In the rugged terrain of the land of the Arabs, steadfast, O caravans of Dedan. What are the caravans of Dedan that my text is talking about? Let's go back to dictionaries and linguistic books. This is the Bible Dictionary, a well-known Christian reference. It says about the word Dedan, it is a place located southwest of Tamar. Dedan, which is near Tamar, was a center of trade in the Arabian Peninsula, and its modern name is Al-Ular in Wadi al-Qura in northern Hejaz. So, first of all, Dedan is currently called Alulur. It is located in Hejaz in present-day Saudi Arabia in the Arabian Peninsula. Bring water to meet the thirsty, O inhabitants of the land of Tamar. Now, what is Tamar? Let's see. What do dictionaries and books say? Old Testament. It says a place in the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula. Likewise, the book of my Bible dictionary that we mentioned a little while ago says, on page 228, Tamar, and Tamar is a Hebrew name that may mean southern, and it is an Ishmaelite tribe, meaning from the lineage of Ishmael, peace be upon him, who infiltrated from Tamar and settled in the Arabian Peninsula. The region where they lived was also called Tamar. Caravans were well known in this area for trade. Tamar was in the Arabian Peninsula, on the route between Damascus and Mecca, and at an equal distance from Babylon to Egypt. Tamar was mentioned with Sheber and Dedan, the inhabitants of the land of Tamar. It is assumed that they would meet them on the road for meetings, not that they were waiting on the road for them to come and feed them and give them water. Rather, they would meet them on the road to give them water. So, imagine that. Where would Tamar be when they moved a little? They will be in the city, which is Tamar, as I said, next to the city. So the whole talk is about the entire geographical scope of this prophecy in Medina, in Yathrib, as it was called in ancient times, that there are people who came out from a certain place going to the city, and it is supposed that the inhabitants there will meet them with water and food and give them drink, because these people fled from the sword and the drawn bow. So when did this happen? This happened during the Hira, the migration of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his companions, to Medina to escape the persecution of the Quraysh, fleeing for their faith. Then, verse 16 discusses a very important detail in the prophecy, saying, "For thus he said to the Lord, who is God, within a year, like the years of a hired worker, all the glory of Kedar will come to an end." This refers to the year after these people left for Tamar, when all the glory of Kedar will be destroyed. We know that a year after the Prophet's migration, the Battle of Badr took place, in which the leaders of the Quraysh were killed. So, who are the Kedars the text speaks of? Let's return to the same source we consulted before, Gaziner. It says, Kedar is a son of Ishmael, the name of a son of Ishmael, peace be upon him. Jewish rabbis call all Arabs by this name, the Kedarites, and they say Shankar, meaning the language of the Arabs. So, the word Kedar among the Jews, even today, is synonymous with Arab. Returning to the Bible dictionary, it says Kedar is a Semitic name. Its meaning is powerful or black, and he is the second son of Ishmael according to Genesis 25:13. He is one of the most famous Arab tribes, and their land is also called Kedar. They were owners of many livestock and were skilled in warfare, especially archery. The well-known Christian scholar Philip Schaff speaks of Kedar and says that Kedar means black-skinned, and he is the second son of Ishmael. They were famous for their archery skills and strong men. The rabbis, who are the scholars, strong men, the rabbis, who are the scholars, call the Arabs by the name Kedar, and tradition makes Muhammad a descendant of Kedar. This means that Kedar is equivalent to the Quraysh. The tribe of Kedar is the same as the tribe of Quraysh. I found this in a Jewish interpretation of the books of Isaiah and Jeremiah, but unfortunately, the author is unknown on the screen. We mention it as a reference. It says, and all the sheep of Quraysh will gather to you. We mention it as a reference so that no one comes and says, you are citing a source with an unknown author. Even though most of the books have unknown authors, all the manuscripts are of unknown authorship. The author is unknown, but the text here, as I said, is cited as a reference. It says, all the affairs of Kedar were translated, all the sheep of Quraysh. We mentioned now that the rabbis and scholars consider the word Kedar to be equivalent to Arab, and they mention that tradition says that Muhammad, peace be upon him, came from Kedar, meaning from Quraysh. Another very important reference that speaks about Kedar is the English Bible Dictionary written by McClintock and Strong. It says Kedar was the son of Ishmael, and from him came a prominent Arab tribe who lived in black tents and were known for their trade and their skill in using the bow. Even the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, descendants of Ishmael, peace be upon him. The rabbis call the Arabs Kedar and use the phrase the tongue of Kedar to refer to the Arabic language. Tradition makes Muhammad a descendant of Kedar, and from Kedar came the tribe of Quraysh, to which Muhammad, peace be upon him, belonged. The text says that after a year, all the glory of Kedar will disappear or vanish. After a year from the Hijra, the glory of Kedar will vanish, and this happened. Indeed, as I mentioned, the text mentions the Battle of Badr, which took place approximately 1 year after the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his companions migrated from Mecca to Medina. We have precise details. The text mentions a very important event in Islamic history, which is the migration of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his companions from Mecca to Medina. Then it mentions the Battle of Badr, which is one of the most important battles in Islam. Even biographical works and books on men of renown distinguish between those who participated in the Battle of Badr and those who participated in it. Those who participated in Badr hold a very high status because it is one of the most important battles in Islam. The text continues, saying that the remaining tribes of Banu Kedar would diminish or decrease. The text begins by saying they would perish, and then continues, saying that there would remain some of the people of Kedar, but their strength would become very weak. This is exactly what happened after the Battle of Badr. The power and standing of the Quraysh among the people were not what they had been before. Their strength was greatly diminished after the killing of the Quraysh leaders and elders. Let's read a final excerpt. A very important quote. Kel and Daltich are talking about this text and saying that the Tamer referred to is not the Tamer located across Horan, which is 3/4 of an hour from Damer, although there is much evidence to support this claim. Rather, it refers to the Tamer located on the pilgrimage route from Damascus to Mecca between Tabuk and Wadi al-Qura. This quote is very important. It states that this place or these texts are talking about Mecca and Medina, and so on. So, as I said, the entire prophecy is clear, a revelation in the land of the Arabs, a revelation that will occur in the land of the Arabs in a distinct text different from all the other texts, a completely different text. Secondly, it speaks of the Dedanites, it speaks of Tamer, it speaks of Kedar or Quraysh, it speaks of the migration, it speaks of people skilled in using the bow, who are the descendants of Ishmael, who are Quraysh. It speaks of the destruction of the leaders of disbelief in the Battle of Badr a year after the migration. It speaks of only a small number of Quraysh remaining after this battle. Kel and Daltich's interpretation, which we talked about earlier, tells you that the word shar here, the word bakia remainder, is very distinctive. It tells you that because it is followed by 5 additions. When I say, for example, the remainder of the leaders of the battle, I don't know the heroes, I mention several things. This tells you that this indicates the magnitude of what was lost. The Hebrew text says, Weshar, meaning, and the remainder of the archer of Keshat Gafuri, the sons of Kedar. They are the remainder of the number of bows, the heroes of the sons of Kedar. The remainder of the number of bows, which are the bows, means the heroes of the sons of Kedar. 5 additions after the word Bakia tell you that this indicates the magnitude of what was lost linguistically, meaning it indicates the magnitude of what was lost. And indeed, as I said, what was lost from the Quraysh in this battle was great. And in the Arabic Islamic references I find mention of these events and places in the beginning of Islam. In the Musannaf of Abd al-Razak, it says, then his grandfather died, and the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, was a boy. So Abu Talib, who was Abdallah's brother from his father and mother, took care of him. When the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, reached puberty, when he grew up, Abu Talib took him on a journey as a merchant. Before when he arrived in Tamer, a rabbi from the Jews of Tamim saw him and said to Abu Talib, what is this boy to you? He said, he is my nephew. He asked him, are you compassionate towards him? He said, yes. He asked him, are you afraid for him? He said to him, yes. He said, by God, if you bring him to Syria, you will never reach your family with him. The Jews will kill them. They will kill him. He is their enemy. So Abu Talib returned from Tamar to Mecca. The Jews knew that a prophet would come in this place in the land of Tamar. That is why the Jews settled in the land of Tamar. They did not settle there for no reason. They had read these prophecies and knew them before Islam, and they went and settled in the land that the coming prophet would be from among them. They were even as the Quran mentions, and before they used to seek victory over those who disbelieved. But when what they knew came to them, they disbelieved in it. They used to say to the disbelievers and polytheists in Medina, a prophet will come from us with whom we will kill you. He will fight with us, and we will triumph over you. They were waiting for the prophet to come from among them. But when the prophet came from the Arabs, they disbelieved in him. They knew him. They knew his place. They knew he would come from this place, but they imagined that he would come from among them, from the Jews. And in the story of the conversion of Salman al-Farisi, may God be pleased with him, in Musnad ibn Abi Shaybah, it is narrated that he said, I said to the monks, tell me about a learned man whom I can follow. They said, we do not know of a man on earth more knowledgeable than a man in Homs. So I went to him and met him, and I told him my story. He said, did nothing bring you here except the pursuit of knowledge? I said, nothing brought me here except the pursuit of knowledge. He said, I do not know of anyone on earth today more knowledgeable than a man who comes to Jerusalem every year. I do not know anyone more knowledgeable than this man. If you go now, you will find his donkey. So I went, and there was his donkey at the gate of Jerusalem. I sat with him, and he went away, and I did not see him for a year. Then he came, and I said to him, O servant of God, what have you been doing? Where have you been? I have been looking for you for a long time. He said, and you are here? I said, yes. He said, by God, I do not know of a man today more knowledgeable than a man who appeared in the land of Tamar. If you go now, you will find him. He has 3 signs. He eats gifts but does not eat charity. And he mentions the well-known characteristics of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. This is further evidence that the Jews and the people of the book in general knew and were aware of the coming of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, in this environment and in the land of Tamar. As mentioned in the prophecy of Isaiah and in the prophet's biography, there are many stories of Jews who, as soon as the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, appeared, knew of his prophethood and knew that he was the prophet. However, some believed and some disbelieved out of hatred, as I said, because they were waiting for the prophet to come from among them, from the Jews, not from the Arabs. All of this, as I said, is based on the prophecies mentioned. Among these prophecies is the one we just read, which is in the book of Isaiah, chapter 21, verse 13 and onwards, that a prophet would come in the land of Arabia, in the land of Tamar. They were living in the land of Tamar, waiting for the arrival of this prophet. This is a prophecy from the Bible about Islam, a clear and explicit prophecy that leaves no room for doubt. It speaks of very precise details that apply only to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and to Islam. Of course, if anyone comes and tells you that this incident or these events are not about the Hira or about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, then we ask them to bring us a revelation in the Arab lands. Besides this revelation, show us an incident of migration or the departure of people from one place to the land of Tamar other than the Prophet's migration. Show us a battle that occurred 1 year after this migration other than the Battle of Badr. You will not find one. It is impossible, and I challenge anyone to find one. Even one of the well-known Christian interpretations, the interpretation of the Bible or the Old Testament, says, we acknowledge that we have no direct evidence of a specific event occurring in that year. Meaning, during this period, we don't know exactly what happened. Why doesn't he know? Perhaps he didn't research Islam, perhaps he doesn't want to know. But we know, as we mentioned, that all these places revolve around Mecca and Medina, and that these events speak specifically about the migration, and that a prophet will come to this place, and a prophet will come to that place, and